American roots was a lot of album. December, Al's gonna win a boatload of Grammys. What's it like? John? Tell he didn't expect to go on stage because he wore his most casual rhinestone Bishop specimen. Except here's how he kicked it off. You know, I believe this to my core. There is no best musician, best artist, best dancer, best actor. That's true. But there is a best album, and it's We Are by John Baptiste. John also took a moment to talk about the role music plays in life. I love music. I've been playing since I was a little boy. It's more than entertainment for me. It's a spiritual practice. I love it. Also, I'd like to apologize to John for interrupting his spiritual practice for years. He joked about Rudy Giuliani's wine self-buffoonery. And even though John won, he actually gave the audience an incredible prize. This performance of his song Freedom. I don't know why I feel like take me back, and I let go so much free. Can't believe I get a front row seat to that show every night. Right there. That's right there. That's it. Front row seat. I also can't believe I have to pay a scalper of $600 for that seat. John ended the song by editing the audience to dance on Billie Eilish's Cable. He does it all. He writes, he arranges, he sings, he dances, and right after the camera cut away, he made Billie Eilish some cable-sized guap. So, unbelievably impressed. Called whatever. John wasn't the only winner of the Grammys. It was also a huge night for 19-year-old pop sensation Olivia Rodrigo, who won 3 Grammys, including 1 for Best New Artist. But as she was walking the red carpet, she accidentally dropped one of them and broke it. Now she has to buy it. That's what it says on the bottom. One powerful moment was when Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made an appearance and called on his hands. We can use it still today to tell our story. Adding, but not you, Kanye. We're dealing with enough already. Thank you, though. Thank you. Zelensky's Grammy appearance comes at a critical time for his country. Russia has almost completely pulled back from the area around Kyiv. And now that they're gone, it is good news. That is good news, admittedly. That's good news, but now that they've pulled out, the world can close.
Really? There's Sonny Barzell. Wow. Ooh, that is spicy. He's a 1 more year left on his contract, too. Oh, but he doesn't even fit on any lines, for God's sakes.
And launched an investigation into possible Russian war crimes. I'm going to save everybody some time and pull the possible out of that sentence. It's for sure war crimes. Investigation done. It's settled. Let's move on to something less obvious, like figuring out if there are troops in the woods. Of course, if it's a Russian bear, they call it special military deputation. There's one thorny issue with the war countries. The war countries are responsible for war crimes. You might want to go through the UN Security Council, but as one of 5 permanent members, Russia would have veto power over any decision. That's insane. That's like if the Avengers consisted of Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Russia. While the world waits for Russia to be held accountable, the people of Ukraine continue to defend their country in surprising ways. Remember that stalled, how long was it? 40-mile-long Russian convoy of tanks and military equipment that was coming down from Belarus at the beginning of the war. Well, It was going to go down as a Circle Kiev end of story, and it never happened. And there was a lot of speculation about why the convoy stopped. Were they bogged down in the mud? Did they run out of fuel? Did they get caught in the left turn lane in Home Depot just past the Arby's on Maple Street? You don't see the turn only arrow to your right at the light, and then your food gets shipped over. Well, it turns out Ukrainians stopped the convoy with a series of night ambushes carried out by special forces and drone operators on quad bikes. It began 8 years ago as a group of volunteer IT specialists and hobbyists designing their own machines. Holy cow! That is... Yes. Ukraine is stopping Putin by tapping into the most precious resource, bored dads. Who's laughing about my drone-making hobby now, huh? Next, I'm going to defeat the whole Russian brigade using only my elaborate model train set and my collection of empty hot sauce bottles. Hey, Ivan, eat ghost pepper ass blaster. How about some habanero colon killer? Yeah, I finish the sauces and they wash the bottles and they put a little shelf in the work. Ukrainian resistance isn't just in the sky, it's also because Russian troops are getting poisoned food from Ukrainian residents. Well, yeah. How do you like them apples, Russia? And by the way, eat the Russian apple. Ukrainians know that Russians are coming to their homes to loot, so they're taunting the Russians by leaving behind notes reading, "Guess where the poison is?" Damn, that is cold. You'd think the Russians would be good at that. It is their most popular board game.
See, I did it Anaheim's pick too.
500 Russian troops have also become ill from alcohol poisoning of unknown origin. No one knows that. But up against the origin of alcohol poisoning
Can be.
is alcohol. And how does a Russian get
Where is Toronto right now? Oh wow, yep, no wonder. Okay.
The rest is potato. And
I'm not doing no Kimpy yet.
COVID news, certain people are now eligible for another. Got 90 COVID
I
shots. Almost got away with it, but the German authorities took suspicion from the man possessing his vaccine card. We got a great show here tonight. My guests are Shaquille O'Neal and Ryan Viola.
Suki for another first. Yeah, that's been a free first round pick for next season. Maybe 4 if this one goes through. Counter offer? Oh damn, that was a counter offer. Nice. So that's 4 first round picks. Yeah, sure he gets caught up, that's fine.
What if I could order delivery anywhere? What if the future thinking wasn't a thing? You know, financial, it's time right now.
The ground type is rigid and strong. It can devastate the opposition with powerful earthquakes and shrug off electricity like it's nothing. My personal favorite ground type is Bambi. It's an adorable rolling elephant. I mean, what's not to like? But I'd love to know what your favorite is down in the comments below. The roster available to us in the Hoenn region has some of my favorites, but some of them are in the same area, in which case I'll only be able to catch one, since Hardcore Nuzlocke rules entail that only the first eligible Pokemon can be caught in any area. Any Pokemon that faints is boxed forever. No items can be used in battle, I always play on set mode, and I can't level past the next gym leader's highest level Pokemon before entering the battle. So join me as I attempt to beat a Pokemon Omega Ruby Hardcore Nuzlocke using only ground types. Back in the good old Hoenn region. Oh, yeah, hi again, Tropius. Mom, who is this guy and why is he here? Given our choice of starters, there's only one that turns into a ground type, so we pick the water type Pokemon Mudkip. I name it Rosalina, and that timid nature lowering its attack is not doing it any favors. Now, while Mudkip eventually turns into a ground type, for now it's only a water type, so we have to find our real first encounter, Nincada. I captured and named it Koopa Troopa, and it does have an attack boosting nature, which I don't think is going to help us out too much against our first challenge versus Rock, Sand, and her rock types. That's right, the only Pokemon we have available to us to use for Rock Sand is Nincada, a bug type, versus her rock types. And to get through this fight, we're going to need a massive amount of luck, which is why I went for Sand Attack right away to start lowering this Geodude's accuracy. On top of the fact that we're at the mercy of good fortune, I did teach Nincada Cut instead of Leech Life, which means we can't use it to gain 1 HP back every single time. And that 1 HP recovery could make a huge difference in the future, because as you can see, we get hit by a Rock Tomb here, but the plan is to try and evade as many as possible with these Sand Attacks and then start setting up Hardens. As long as we get to +6, any move barring a crit that Roxanne is going to throw at us will only do 1 HP, in which case recovering 1 HP would essentially be a free turn. Unfortunately, the Geodude does get a crit tackle, which does mean that we have to consume our Orange Berry before continuing to use Harden. It also hits another Rock Tomb, which at this point is depleting our limited and non-recoverable health. I set up the +6 defense with a final Harden as the Geodude misses, and at this point it's time to just send a barrage of cuts and Fury Swipes in to do as much damage as possible. The process of dodging hits and whittling this Geodude down took so much time, and the whole time I was just thinking about how I have to face a Nose Pass after this as well. Now hold on a minute. Yeah, since I continue to deal 1 literal hit point of damage per turn, there's no way for me to avoid Roxanne healing with her potion, but at least she used it on her Geodude instead of Nose Pass. Eventually though, I do manage to whittle it down again and take it out, but it leaves me at only 3 HP for Nose Pass. Very fortunately though, I almost leveled up to 15 before the battle, which means I get to lucky having Sand Attack the Nose Pass when it comes in. It ends up hitting its tackle the first turn when I have no Sand Attacks up, leaving me at 4 HP, but after that, I get a lucky 4 more Sand Attacks up before it hits me with another. This does mean I get all my Sand Attacks up, losing only the health afforded to me by the level up. And unfortunately, the only thing I can do going forward is a Hope and Pray, which isn't helping me that much since right away Nose Pass hits another, which means we can only take 1 more hit. Pair that with the fact that I'm at this point starting to run out of Fury Swipes, which is the only way I can do multiple points of damage per turn, and things are looking pretty dire. I do, however, manage to get a lucky 5 hitter in before Nose Pass hits its final tackle, leaving me at 1 HP. At this point, my heart was beating out of my chest. Any one of these turns could be my last, but the Nose Pass kept missing, leaving it down to the wire. At this point, I was all out of Fury Swipe, so 1 damage with Cut is all I could hope for. Eventually, the Nose Pass even missed the second to last tackle, leaving it at 1 HP. my goodness, I don't think I've had a fight that close or dragged out in my entire life. And that's how I beat Roxanne using only Ninkata. Wait, that wasn't all video idea?
Has anyone ever told you that the looks of a rich boy?
Dude, what were you compelling you to say that?
Just a thought. That's the look.
Yeah, fuck, now that's a rich boy. Once I get to Granite Cave, I can find my next encounter at Geodude, which is only a 5% encounter, so I can't believe I'm saying this, but Geodude is a rare Pokemon. I name it Thwomp, and that minus attack nature and not having sturdy is not good at all. I then start facing the gym trainers in hopes of getting to the level cap, and Rosalina gets to level 16, evolving into Marshtomp. Our next opponent is Brawly, who's really more of a gym owner than a gym leader, if you ask me. But nevertheless, with our new and improved team, we have to take him on, and I go ahead and lead with my Marshtomp as he sends in his Machop. And this thing really doesn't pose a threat for a Marshtomp whatsoever, so a couple of water guns is enough to take it out, and then we have to deal with Makuhita. And this thing actually does manage to knock off our Hornberry, blocking us from recovering in this fight, but a few more water guns, and we've got the gym badge. Looks like my water guns were more powerful than your guns, Brawly. Okay, now that is a rich boy. Want to know the trick to battling? If you ask me, it's raising different kinds of Pokemon in a balanced way. Oh yeah, dude, I would know. I've got ground types, and ground types. Yeah. We are then involuntarily introduced to Maxie. My heart is pounding in my chest. He's a very literal guy, and I decided to do a bit of super training because the May fight that's coming up is very difficult with her Grovyle having Mega Drain that can pretty much completely destroy our entire team. In fact, I decided to super train Ninkata's special defense all the way up to max because it's probably going to have to carry this entire fight on its back. However, May starts out the fight with her Slugma, so I lead with Marshtomp and take it out with a couple of water guns. This, of course, means that she's going to send in her Pick Bad Grovyle, and expecting a Mega Drain, I swap out into Koopa, who actually just takes a quick attack. I then get hit by a Fury Cutter and go for a move combined with Slateford Market, Struggle Bug, which actually takes out about a third of its health and lowers the special attack, so that Mega Drain does a bit less damage. An Oranberry heals me back up above half as I go for another Struggle Bug, taking it down to about half, but lowering its special attack once again, so that Mega Drain does even less. I go for yet another Struggle Bug, almost taking it down into the red, as Grovyle then just goes for Pursuit, leaving me at 8 HP, at which point I can take it out with a final Struggle Bug. This just means we need to swap in Rosa to take care of a Wailmer, but once again we have a fight carried by Ninkata, who I didn't think would be this useful in the run. This also sets us up for our next gym fight versus Watson, which can usually be one of the most difficult gym fights in all of Pokemon because of how early and difficult it usually is. However, since he can't use his signature electric type move, since our entire team is comprised of ground types, we easily take out the Magnemite with a combo of Power Punch and Bulldoze. However, even though Watson can't hit us with his electric type moves, he does have annoying moves like Supersonic, but I figure I'll just try to work through it, and I do manage to hit a Bulldoze, taking out the Magneton. And since we're basically at zero risk, I once again go for another Bulldoze, taking out the Voltorb, claiming us the third gym badge.
Think you know pullback cards? Think again. It's amazing what you can hack when you have a pullback card.
Look at us! We are at the machine. We eat up that colorful, delicious bite in our bowl. Like Pebble cereal. Pebble brings big flavors to all of our big ideas. So it's grab a block, grab a bowl, and yabba dabba doo doo.
As I then break the rocks blocking the path, I find myself a Soft Sand, which is going to power up our ground type moves. I'm then also able to find my next encounter of the run, a Null, which I capture and name Wiggler. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it having a neutral nature is the first thing that isn't bad. Making my way over to Fall Upper Town, I can also find another encounter, a Sandshrew that I catch and name Bowser. And of course it would have a modest nature, why wouldn't it? And immediately upon leveling up one time, it turns into a Sandslash. Would you like to hear my story? Nope. Oh, you can play to me. Up the mountain we go, and on the way, Geodude evolves into a Graveler. Which means it's time to face our next hot mess of an opponent, Flannery and her fire types. And much like May, Flannery goes ahead and leads with her Slugma, so I send in Rosa and go for a power-up punch right away to increase my attack. Slugma then sets up the Sun so the Fire-type moves will do more damage. I hit a power-up punch to boost my attack even further, and it goes for an overheat that does about a third of my health. Since I've gotten it down pretty low at this point, Flannery heals up the Slugma, and I go for another power-up punch, which actually gets the burn off the Flame Body, but I heal it up with a Roxberry, at which point I know it's time to start taking it out with Bulldoze. Next is Double, but since I'm a +3 attack, one Bulldoze is all it takes to take it out, which leaves only 4 coal. And 4 coal is pretty bulky, so one Bulldoze does a bit over half as it sets up the Sun once again, which lets me outspeed and take it out for the 4th gym badge. Once we've defeated Flannery, we get access to the desert, where we can find one of 2 encounters, either a Voltoid or a Trapinch, and I end up getting a Trapinch, which is exactly what I would have wanted. I nicknamed it Gobblegut, and at least plus defense minus special attack isn't bad. And now that we've acquired our new team member, it's time to take on our father Norman and his normal types. Now, Norman can be incredibly dangerous because Slacking has some legendary level stats, and it hits me with a main attack that only does about a 5th of my health, as I can hit it with a power punch to boost my attack. The one saving grace here is that Truant makes it immobilized every other turn, so we get a free +2. It then gets a crit with a feint attack as we get another crit on a power punch, taking it out. Next up is Vigoroth, which can't do nearly as much damage as Slacking, but it does get to move every single turn, and I take it down into the red with a power punch, which means that Norman heals it up. However, because of the extra attack boost from the previous power punch, another one is enough to take out the Vigoroth, leaving him with his final Slacking. And it does manage to take me down to about 3 HP, as I take it down to about half, but since I know it's going to Truant, I can just take it out with another power punch, which means I beat my dad by spamming just one move. Get good, scrub. Being our father gives us access to Surf, which means I can go grab the good rod. And this started the enormously tedious process of trying to fish up a barboat, which is a 5% chance, mind you, but it took way more tries than that for me. Heck, I even managed to find a shiny Magikarp in the process, so you're telling me I can get a 1 in 4,096 odds chance, but not 1 in 20. Finally, after what must have been about 100 attempts, I did find my precious barboat, and I name it Cheep Cheep. I'm a bit insulted by its bad nature, but at least it gets to join the team. However, unfortunately for Magikarp, it's about to spend the rest of time in the box. And speaking of boxes, today's video is brought to you by Boxu, a monthly Japanese snack box subscription that's got new authentic Japanese snacks at your doorstep every single month. And if you're anything like me, being a huge Nintendo fan is a destination of mine that I eventually have to see to its full extent. But since it's been especially difficult to travel in the past couple of years, I'm very grateful to Boxu that they're sending me a bit of Japan for me to experience all the way to Scandinavia. I'm personally a huge mochi fan, so I'm really excited to try this one. There's a description for every single snack in the box, and there's even a map showing where all the snacks are from. It looks like I even got a snack from Kyushu, which is the region in Japan that the Hoenn region is based off of. During the month of March, Boxu celebrates the blooming of the sakura blossoms across Japan in their most anticipated collection of the year, and anyone who subscribes during March will receive the sakura season as their first box. So if you want to start snacking and support me in this channel, you can use the code ANTHROPOIDLIVE10 and the link down in the description below to save 10% and up to $47 on your authentic Japanese subscription to Boxu. Let's get back to the video. My first order of business is to evolve Barboach into Whiscash. I then join Steven on some of his rich boy shenanigans. How about it? Will you get away from me? Steven, who is this chick? You, target block completed. You, forever. I don't know, Mark. She's a weird one. Welcome to the Weather Institute. There seems to be some kind of disturbance on the second floor, but I'm a professional, not easily rattled. Disturbance? You're being held hostage by criminals. I respect your professionalism. There's something here you can't see. The unspoken chemistry between us. While grinding for the level cap, I evolve both Gobblegut and Wiggler, after which it's time to take on Winona and her flying types. She starts out with Swellow, so I start with Gobblegut, and I get hit by an aerial ace, after which I take it down into the red with a rock slide. Winona's then forced to waste a Hydro Potion as I take it down to a similar amount of health. She goes for a double team to try and evade my rock slide, but it's not enough as a crunch takes it out. Her next Pokemon is her Ace Altaria, and expecting a Dragon Breath here, I swap out into Bowser. The Dragon Breath does about a quarter of my health, and the next one the following turn takes me down to half as I go for a Rock Tomb to lower its speed and take it down below half health with a crit. Another Rock Tomb is then enough to take out the Altaria, but the next Pokemon, however, is super effective with a Water Pulse, so I have to swap out into Rosalina to tank it. The following turn, I go for a Rock Slide, but it does a bit below half health, and I get hit by a Water Pulse, which actually ends up getting the Confusion. Since I have so much health, I decide to risk the confusion, and I break through and get the rock slide, which actually takes it out, which means I must have gotten a very low roll. Finally, Winona's last Pokemon is Skarmory, but since I'm still confused, I decide to swap out into Wiggler, who gets hit by a couple of aerial aces, heals up with an Orange Berry, and can then hit back with a Lava Plume, taking out the Skarmory. This means we receive our 6th gym badge, but not only that, directly after the fight, Marshtomp evolves into a Swampert.
I'm looking forward to when we can meet again.
Okay, she's weirded me out a little bit. Once I reach Lilycomb City, we have to have another fight with May. And this could potentially be super scary, since in this game she does have a fully evolved Sceptile. And I did equip Swampert with a Rindo Berry to be able to resist this exact scenario, but for whatever reason, she never actually used a Grass-type move, so I got through the fight without any problems whatsoever.
I keep suppressing the urge to drink soda, and then I praise myself for it.
Okay, so this team improvement is going to be my new self-improvement guru.
But these soda pops are just too tasty. But now I just want to, with you, I want to engage you.
Okay, fine, Courtney, you've stolen me from Olivia. In preparation for the 7th gym battle, Gobblegut evolves into a Flygon, and it's time to take on the twins, Kate and Liza, and their psychic types.
At Pizza Hut, we get asked, do you deliver? Yeah, we deliver. We deliver.
And since Gobblegut has Crunch and a massive attack stat, it absolutely gobbled these psychic types up, netting us the 7th gym badge. Alright, boys, let's get ready to rumble. And rumble we shall. In the next big fight, and actually a pretty difficult fight versus the first Mega Evolution of the run in Maxie. The way I've decided to use Mega Evolution in this run is that any fight where the opponent uses Megas, I'm allowed to Mega Evolve as well, which means that we get to see Rosalina for the first time as a Mega. I hit the Mightyena super effectively down to about 40% as I power up myself with Power Up Punch, and my speed gets half with Scary Face. I take down then does minimal damage, and another Power Up Punch gets me to +2 and takes out the Mightyena. In comes Weezing, which unsurprisingly instantly explodes, taking me down to just 42 HP, which isn't great since the next Pokemon is Crobat. Not wanting to be outsped and taken out by an Acrobatics, I swap into Wiggler, who actually takes way more damage than I expected, so I swap out again into Swamp. Graveler can resist Acrobatics for days, so all I need to do is use it. Wait a second, I forgot to teach it a Rock-type move before the fight? Now this is probably the dumbest mistake I've ever made in a Nuzlocke video, but because of Moonluck, I can't swap out, and I'm locked into only using Rock Smash and Power Up Punch, and he's definitely out-damaging me with Acrobatics, which means that unfortunately, I'm gonna lose Swamp here to my own stupidity. I then send in Bowser, who instantly gets Moonlucked, and I go for Action, taking it down in red. The following turn, I get my Acrobatics, after which I set up a Sword Stance to prepare for Maxie's next Pokemon. Another Acrobatics takes me down to 50 HP, but Rock Tomb seals Crobat's fate, after which he sends in his camera, which Mega Evolves immediately. However, because of that +2 from Sword Stance, one Earthquake is all it's going to take it out and beat Maxie. The guy then tries to ruin the world by unleashing Groudon, the ultimate ground type. And for whatever reason, Champion Steven thinks it's a good idea to send a 10-year-old to ride on this thing's back into a volcano. I'm gonna go out on a limb and hope that guy doesn't have any children of his own. Now, as epic as it would be to add Groudon to the team, legendaries are not allowed, so we're gonna have to take it on instead. And so I figured my best order of business is going into Bowser, who's got the highest defense on the team. Being a wild Pokemon, Groudon randomly goes for Rest, which gives me a free Earthquake, taking it down below half, as Precipice Blade then takes me down to just 25 HP, after which another Earthquake is enough to take out the Groudon, which means we can get through it without any casualties, and move on to Wallace, which is going to be a very difficult fight. Wallace has a team of 5 water types, of course super effective against ground types, leading off with his Love Disc as I send in Bowser. The first thing he does is go for a Sweet Kiss to confuse Bowser, but I do have a Person Berry just in case that would happen, so I can take it out with one Earthquake so we don't have to deal with this thing anymore. Next up is Milotic, which is by far the biggest problem on his team, so I instantly swap out into Rosa as he misses a Hydro Pump. This is super important. Since he only has one water type move in Hydro Pump, it's going to be important to stall this out. I go for a second Bulldoze, trying to bait out the third Hydro Pump, but he just goes for Recover instead. Now that he's healed up to just about full, I go for another Bulldoze, and he does connect with his third Hydro Pump. Since Rosalina is now at risk of being taken out by another Hydro Pump, I go ahead and swap out into Cheep Cheep as it hits the fourth. It ends up doing lots of damage, getting a critical hit, and so I decide that Ninkata is going to do one final solid for the team, swapping into that final Hydro Pump, taking one for the team. Now that my Lodix used all of his hydro pumps, I swap it into Wiggler, which might seem odd, but I go ahead and set up an Amnesia as it recovers back up. I then get to +4 with a second Amnesia as a disarming voice does barely any damage at all. I then set up my final Amnesia as an Ice Beam actually gets a crit and does a fair bit of damage. Now, even though I'm at risk of going down to another crit, I can't really swap into anything else, so I decide to stay in and risk it. However, there is another huge problem being recovered. There's no way I'm ever going to out-damage it. So I quickly realized that I was going to have to stall this thing out of recover, which I pretty much just did by spamming Lava Plume until I got a burn. Then once I noticed that the Melodic stopped going for recover, I just started spamming Earth Power until it went down, which is how I took down my Melodic with a camera. Realizing I'll go down to any physical move from this Whiz Cash, I decide to swap out into Gobblegut and can take out the Whiz Cash with a couple of Earthquakes. This means that Wallace is going to send in his next Pokemon, Celio, which I'm unsure I can take out in one hit since it's pretty bulky, so I decide to send in Cheep Cheep, who's unfortunately also going to have to take one for the team. Before going night-night, however, I do get a crit with an Earthquake, almost taking the Celio out. My currently healthiest team member on the roster is Bowser, so I swap it in to revenge kill the Celio as Wallace sends out his final Pokemon, Seeking. A critical hit Earthquake earns us the final gym badge, but that was certainly a tough fight. Now that we're missing quite a few team members, I decide to go to the Safari Zone where I capture myself a Donphan. I go ahead and name her Peach, not that Peach looks like an elephant or anything, that's not what I'm trying to say. And since catching Donphan blocks us off from getting Rhyhorn in the Safari Zone, we make our way up the waterfall to Victory Road. No preparations, it's time to take on the first Elite Four member, Sydney with his Dark Tides. Now Sydney's a weird looking guy, like he's got one tuft of hair, but kind of looks like the Sydney Opera House. Hey, don't be dissing Sydney. Egan, where did you come from? I wasn't dissing the entire city of Sydney in Australia, just the guy's haircut. Anyway, Sydney starts out with Mighty Enna, intimidating my Sand Slash, so I go for a Sword Stance to get my attack back up as he goes for Swagger, which I heal off with a Person Berry. The next turn, I go for a +3 Brick Break, instantly taking out the Mighty Enna as he sends in Shift Ring. After getting hit by Fake Out, it outspeeds with a Leaf Blade, taking me down pretty low as Brick Break then takes it out. I then outspeed and destroy the Cacturn as he sends in Sharpedo, which could just Aqua Jet me, so I decide to swap out into Rosa. After tanking said Aqua Jet, the Sharpedo also outspeeds me the next turn, going for a Crunch, taking me down to just above half as I can take it out with an Earthquake since Sharpedo doesn't really have defenses. A Night Slash from Absol takes Rosa down low as I go for an Earthquake which barely misses out on the KO. I then decide to swap out into Peach on the turn that Sydney's obviously going to go for a full restore. Absol doesn't even hit me down below half with a critical hit Night Slash, after which I can take it out with an Earthquake, beating Sydney.
Craving a Popeye chicken sandwich? Try to get some chicken sandwich. The steamed freshly hand-battered chicken buttery real.
This means we move on to the second Elite Four member, Phoebe and her Ghost Dives. Phoebe's got some bulky Pokemon, particularly that Dustoar can be very difficult to deal with all the elemental punches, but I start out with Gobblegut as she sends in Dusclops. A Crunch takes it down below half as she predictably goes for a Confuse Ray, which I gave my last Person Berry to Gobblegut for. This means that I can freely take out the Dusclops with another Crunch, but she's going to send in Dusknoir, and since she's pretty hard telegraphing the Ice Punch, I decide to swap out into Wiggler. The Ice Punch doesn't do too much damage, as the next turn I can outspeed and go for a Will-O-Wisp, having the attack of the Dusknoir, which is going to make a huge difference. Even though he's got Ice Punch, I decide to swap out into Bowser as he starts going for Hex since his attack is compromised. This allows me to set up a Sword Stance since Hex is pretty reliably doing a quarter of my health. In the end, I decide to go for a second Sword Stance, risking the crit so that I can outspeed the Dusknoir and take it out with an Earthquake. The reason I did this is because all Phoebe's remaining Pokemon are slower than Bowser, so I can freely just take them all out with Earthquakes, winning me the battle. But this just means we have to take out the Elite Four member I'm the most afraid of, Glacia and her Ice types. Having a full team of Ice types staring me in the face with a team full of Ground types is a terrifying prospect. My best bet is to lead with Swampert as her Glalie goes for a Light Screen so I can go for a Power-Up Punch, raising my attack. The next turn she goes for Hail, which gives me another free Power-Up Punch, taking out the first Glalie with a critical hit. She then sends in her first Frost Blast that immediately confuses me with a Confuse Ray.